Hey, Buru, Iboya, Ibuche, everybody in Cyberland. Your favorite Babalao. At least I hope so. Omoodum, Odileke coming at you with another fine, inspirational Sunday, right? Video. And so, hey, before we begin, if you haven't had a chance to hit the like button, if you haven't had a chance to hit the subscribe button, I definitely hope you get a chance to. If you have not checked out the podcast series, I definitely recommend that you get after that. But nonetheless, there's a lot of great detail in the description tab. So go through the description tab. Please filter through it. Please read through it. A lot of good information out there. So, with that said, definitely want to give a shout out to everybody who's on right now. And as we allow people to kind of tick on in, all right, we're going to give them a couple of minutes. We're going to give them a couple minutes. Why? Because I want to make sure that I get enough time for Q&A. The Oyekun series lasted, maybe that was about a 3-4 hour session that had to be broken up into three parts. So, very important that I give some time for the viewers to come on through. All right, so with that, all right, let me go ahead and look at the chat so I can see who's on here. Steve, as always, Iburu, Iboya, Ibucheche. Vincent, my man, how you doing, my brother? Yeah, you been a little MIA. But a little boy, that's good. Nonetheless, I know you're thinking about us, but don't be afraid to hit me up. You know how to get a hold of me. All right, who else we got out here? Tyshawn, my man. Tyshawn, I'm shocked that you're out here, but I'm happy that you are. Nonetheless, we will chat later for sure based on the stuff that we've been talking about. Hey, Jay. All right, how you doing, brother? Hey, thank you very much, Emil Orunmila and the Eguns and Olodumare, right? God himself bless you, my friend. And Janae, always a pleasure. Just talk to you today. I feel like the band is coming back together. And tribe of us. Yes, no, of course. Iburo boy, Ibucheche. And I think that's everybody. So if you keep seeing me look down here, it's because I'm looking at the chat. Not that I'm ignoring you guys. Camera here, right? Chat's over here. Hey, Paul, Iburo boy, Ibucheche. Ah, Jay, I'm a female, but you say Ache. But yes, Ache. Ah, Jay, I'm sorry. So, Jay, now that makes me think, what's your full name? So I can just address you by your full name. I can't promise you I'll remember it over and over again, but at least I would try. All right. Yes, sir. Faith can conquer anything, buddy, and we will talk later. No, but boy. All right. Hey, so definitely give me the likes, give me the subscribes, do all that good jazz. Let's get this going. Let's go ahead and share this. Let's get the population moving. Right, we're gonna talk about some great things right now. So hey, let's get after it. Let's get after it. All right. So what are we gonna talk about today? You already saw we talked about Iyobe. You already saw we talked about Oyekun, and now we're gonna talk about Iwori. All right. Right now, we got a lot of people coming on, and Jaquetta. Jaquetta? Am I saying that right? Jaquetta? Or Jaquetta. If I'm saying that right, I'm happy. If I'm not, I'm sorry. But Jaquetta, little boy. All right. So let's get after this, right? Today we're gonna explore, right? Probably a very profound Odung of Ifa, which is not just Iwori Meji, but it's the series of Odi Meji, right? That we're gonna talk about. And I think it's very important to understand this Odun because this is an Odun that speaks a lot about the concepts of the mind, right? The logical thinker, the person that the mind is the most powerful thing, but it could be your worst enemy at the same time. So I want to explore that as much as possible. So with that, I want to make sure that you and I kind of spend some time understanding that. The first sign in the Iwori Meji series or the Iwori series is Iwori Meji. And when we start to kind of look at the profound mysteries of the Iwori series of Ifa, a path that reveals is not only a secret of our destiny, but it also gives us a lot of insight into the eternal wisdom, right, that guides us towards balance, peace, and fulfillment. There's a reason why every time something does not go your way, you feel anxious. People say, well, that's your anxiety. People say it's because you're worried. But why are we worried? Why does our body, why does our mind, why is it that a robot cannot comprehend the differences and yet does not necessarily react as intuitive, right? And as impulsive as humans? And that's something to think about, right? So when we look at the Iwori series of things, right, we look at a realm of Ifa that is not just a collection of Oduns from Iwori Meji down to Iwori Ofun, right? But it's a spiritual roadmap. And in this particular spiritual roadmap, there's a sacred code, right, that kind of whispers the voices of our ancestors, a very strong connection with the Ogun, right? This unravels a deeper current of the shape of our lives. It tells us that there's different layers, right? No different than when we look at quantum physics or we talk about our spiritual double and we talk about the essence of where we live today in Aye compared to the spirit world of Olorun, where we are connected. And when this gets dislocated, we begin to have issues in our lives. When you start to kind of look at the concepts of the ancestors and you start to kind of dig deeper into this, right? What we begin to kind of realize quickly is that from Iwori Meji to Iwori Ofun, right, there is a sequence that teaches us that growth, arise through challenges. At many times we have to be challenged. We have to be, no kidding, I guess, placed in predicaments that will allow mankind to evolve. The Iwori series of things teaches us that evolution is more important than ever. The light that emerges only after we embrace the wisdom hidden within the darkness, which is a lot of times those trials and tribulations that you go through, is unmatched. It's just pretty much, it's very much unmatched. Right? So Iwori Meji opens this sacred path up, right? Reminding us that the wisdom comes, often it comes through the patience, through the silence, through the observation. In this particular Odu, this calls us to kind of take a pause. It kind of allows us to reflect. It allows us to seek inner understanding before making pivotal decisions. The spirit within Iwori Meji, right, teaches us that the success begins not with power, right, but with the awareness of your own strength and limitations. Like a quiet flame when you turn on a candle, right, that never flickers. Iwori Meji asks us to cultivate that discipline, that wisdom, that humility, right? To conquer life's storms, but do it the right way. And that's very important for us to always remember. So now, when I look at Iwori Meji from a deeper standpoint, from a Lokumi standpoint, from a and Lokumi is probably the wrong answer because Ifa is Ifa, doesn't matter where you preach it. We gotta dig a little deeper. Iwori Meji, because it's the sense of evolution and it's the sense of those trials and tribulations I told you about. Iwori Meji is the reason why technology is the reason why we have technology today. Right? It's the reason why we have logical, artificial intelligence and language models today. Is Iwori Meji? Iwori Meji, this is an Odu, right? That particularly at the end of it all, right? This is an Odu that's complemented by the blessings of Olofin, by the blessings of Osain, Ochun, Olokun. This is a sign where the children of Orunmila tried to outsmart Orunmila, began to pressure Orunmila, and they assaulted him, right? To the point of their own demise. This is where I told you, Iwori Meji is you're either smart to your own detriment, or you're smart to your own benefit. In Iwori Meji, the children, we try to surpass too quickly the elders. Although it is written that we want you to surpass us. We want the aleyos, we want the aborishas, right? The folks that maybe just enter consecration or don't have any consecration to surpass us, to ensure that our legacy and our traditions are there. In Iwori Meji, this is your osolbo. You try to go too fast. Orunmila, in this case, was insulted by his kids because his kids say, well, listen, I wear the same clothes, I divine the same way. Why should I bow down to you, Orunmila, their own father? And then they began to question him about things that he did, not knowing the secrets that he knows. Makes you almost think, do you have faith at all, right? So Orunmila returned. He went back to Olorun. He said, okay, you guys got it. And this is the way it's going to be. So his children, they pleaded for him because at a certain point, the world was in chaos. They needed the wisdom of an elder who knew the deeper secrets of things. Iwori Meji begins to show that flaw that happened. He forgave them, but then he gave his children the kings to communicate with him. This is the reason why kings today are pivotal for divination. And to this day, humanity will pay for Iwori Meji's, transgressions. So food for thought there. Iwori Meji, this is particularly a sign where, you want to know more than Ifa, right? You wanna gather the knowledge. You want to kind of soak it all in, but you got to be careful. There's an old saying that I think a lot of my coworkers say a lot of, hey, don't put the horse in front of the cart. I'm sorry, don't put the cart in front of the horse, right? Because the horse has got to pull the cart, right? So if you put the cart in front of the horse, then who's doing the work? It doesn't work. It's illogical, right? So this is an Odun that says that a lot of times people, based on their logic and their expression of thinking, yeah, they're super smart, right? And to their benefit, but to their demise, you got to be careful because you find a lot of mistrust. You find maliciousness in everything. The children of Iwori Meji feel like they're owed something. They're ungrateful. That's Iwori Meji, right? Where things on earth begin to go rotten, and illness related to the body rotting are all contributions of Iwori Meji, right? But what I'm giving you is the negative side of Iwori Meji, which means that there's a positive side, right? Because every Odun has a balance. If you've learned anything from listening to me, everything has balance. So this is a sign that particularly says that if we're able to turn the tides and we're able to trust properly by using, the right methods of understanding that our spirituality, although sometimes you can't draw a straight line from A to B, sometimes taking that leap of faith is going to be very important for you, very hard for you, but you got to be able to do it. Making sure that you know that you're not a victim. You just refuse to take responsibility and accountability. And if you're able to change that and say that, listen, it's not the world against me, is that I obviously am the variable in things. That's Iwori Meji, right? And I need to be able to correct action and correct course. Iwori Meji is an Odun that says that an obstacle to be destroyed, right? We have to be able to use our logic, but they be able to apply it in a sense that has balance, respect, and trust, which tells you that in Iwori Meji, you can have one of the most powerful Oduns and one of the most profound destinies that can ever be seen. But you got to be able to change your character to align you so that you can always break and destroy those obstacles, so that you can always avoid, right, those illnesses and those issues, right, that may accompany it. Iwori Meji is an intelligent sign. Iwori Meji is ire oma. It's the blessings of intelligence at its best. But Iwori Meji is also a great diviner. Iwori Meji, just like the pataki, when the children were now given the kings by Orunmila to communicate, they knew immediately that they had to master the divination of Inking. So they're master diviners in Iwori Meji if you apply yourself and you do it right. So you got to be very cautious about that. In Iwori Meji, the Iwori Meji, there's always going to be a rub between the godparent and the godchild. Iwori Meji is one of those signs where we try to avoid the rub, but the rub is going to happen and no one can stop that. And at many times, this is when the Godfather departs. This is when the Godfather says, "Hey, thanks for playing. If you need me, you call me. But we're not gonna be like that, like that." You know what I mean? So in a Woody Meiji, there's always gonna be some hidden feelings that harbor dark secrets, hidden feelings that the person with this Odung is always gonna have, and is always gonna have that feeling inside them, as if again they're owed something. Right? In this particular sign, this is an Ifa that speaks of people around this sign, or it could even be this person in this sign that it could be liable, right, for bribing, for stealing, for cheating, right, or whatever it takes for them to obtain their means. And I'm not saying that everybody in the Woody Meiji is like this, but I'm saying these are the things you're gonna have to combat so that you can stay in Ide. These are the things you got to push away so that you can be in Ide. Because remember, like I told you, you have intelligence, you're a great diviner. You're going to be able to see a destiny that's more profound than anyone's ever seen. You got a lot of blessings ahead of you, but you got to change the character. You got to change the character. This is a sign where you got to protect your head at all times. Cover your head, keep your head covered, making sure that you don't bump your head, make sure you don't fall on your head. All those things are important. This is one of the signs that say um, that this sign is so connected spiritually that even consultations after the sun goes down, Iwuri Mei is not allowed to do. So for those of you who have this sign in Hand of Ifa and you're in Obaoriate, no consultation after 6 p.m. or after the sun goes down. Or if you have this sign in your Awoni Orunmila, right? Then guess what? You let Ifa rest after 6 p.m. or when the sun goes down, whichever comes first. So that's Iwori Meji, so that you guys have an insight. All right. So we spent a lot of time talking about Iwori Meji. Now let me go back to the chat. Let's see where we're at. When the mind becomes the enemy, it is the mind itself. Is it the mind itself or the absence of alignment with Ori that gives it the power? Hey, boy, check. Hey, that's a great question, Steve. Whenever we find ourselves in disalignment, we are not shooting on all cylinders. So you make a very, very good point. Your Ori alignment, right? And many times you do a consultation and you start to see these signs, or you start to see many barriers that kind of highlight some of these concepts in Iwuri, or maybe you came out Iwuri Meji, right? Or anybody comes out Iwuri Meji. Ifa then marks to you, right? Unireleri. And maybe you have to do a head cleansing. Maybe you have to do a head rogación where we got to put something on your head. Maybe we got to feed your head. Maybe we got to, you know what I mean? And again, this is more in tune on aligning you with your Ori, because your head and your Ori are two different things, but you begin to see where we begin to manipulate this part of the human mind. So I think what you're saying is very spot on. I think alignment is going to be everything. Alignment allows you to shoot in a good direction. So no, Buddha boy, thank you for that question. KD, Buddha boy, Bucheche, what is going on? All right, you guys ready for the next one? All right, no questions so far. Y'all sure? All right, get me going. We'll start going. All right. So now we're gonna go into Iwori Obe. So what do we know about Iwori Obe or Iwori Bobe? Right? Iwori Bobe is a sign of Olokun. Iwori Bobe is when the Mbis came into the world. Iwori Bobe is the sign that begins to talk about that turmoil in the mind, where Odi Meji was introducing where the mind can be your own demise. Odi Meji now starts to talk about the illness in the head, starts to talk about the brain functions, or better yet, dysfunctions in the head. Right? This is going to be a very, very interesting one. All right, let's think about it for a minute. Iwori Bobe. As we move into Iwori Bobe, we reveal that the wisdom alone is not enough. We have to be able to act with purpose and courage. Obe, in this particular case, when I say Iwori and I say Obe, talks a lot about the awakening of our inner warrior. Talks a lot about the encouraging us to embrace kind of a different stance of leadership, right? Taking responsibilities for outcomes of our choices. Again, you notice in the Odi Meji, I was already talking about where we don't take responsibilities. I already talked about where we think that we're owed something, where I already talked about where we are the victim always. Now, so when we start to talk about that, Odi Bobe now teaches us that we need to blend, right? We need to blend destiny. Or better yet, Iwori Obe. I think I'm going to say it this way. Iwori Obe teaches us that destiny bends not only right to the wise, but also to the brave who dare to walk the path. Pretty sure I'm saying that right, but that's a saying in Iwori Bobe. Let me say it again. Destiny bends not only to the wise, but also to the brave who dare to walk their path. And that's something that we have to make sure that we're tracking. That's something we got to make sure that we understand. These are beautiful Oduns that are trying their best to align themselves with us, and we got to make sure that we're doing our piece. So there you go again. So now we got Iwori Bobe. Now, as I begin to look at Iwori Bobe, right, I kind of reflect back a little bit here because Iwori Bobe is an Odun that teaches us the importance of humility. Humility as a leader. Humility, not just as, hey, I want to be a leader and I want people to follow me, but the humility of a leadership is knowing the strengths and weaknesses of not only yourself, but the person and the people in your team, the people that you are responsible for. Iwori Bobe says this, the humility in leadership. Why? Because it's the strength that comes through the service of others. It's service before self. Iwori Obe tells us that we got to avoid arrogance and pride. Iwori Obe, Mafarafun Chango and Ogun and Eshu. You know, Iwori Bobe reminds me of a patakís where Orunmila wanted to warn a king who neglected his people, became very arrogant. So by performing a bow and humbling himself before his ancestors, the king was able to restore peace and prosperity in the kingdom. So I gave you the short version of that because I think it's important for us to note something. That your arrogance will get you nowhere. That's Iwori Bobe. Iwori Bobe says you need to humble yourself. That's Iwori Bobe. So, you know, with that, we got to take those things into consideration if we truly want to see a difference. Iwori Bobe, let me go back to Olokun because I think that's important to know. Transformation that Olokun brought to this world was undeniable in Iwori Bobe. The Mbis in Iwori Bobe. It was so undeniable that this sign has a temperament to ensure that nothing is certain in this world. That no different than how the ocean and the seas can raise at a moment's notice and destroy everything. We have to be understanding that our world, although we may plan it out, although we may think we understand where we're going, everything is up in the air and nothing is certain. When Iwori Bobe is present, or for those who have this sign and are aligned with this sign, it talks a lot about a disbalance, right? A loss of the control of either your nervous system. Sometimes you get so anxious or so worried or so concerned, you start to kind of see the mental illness of things, right? Maybe like a temporary crazy almost to a certain point. And in a lot, like many signs in the Iwori series, I always worry about the folks that want to take in alcohol, take in drugs, take in sedatives to calm things down. Because again, a lot of the pressure is great in Iwori Bobe. Iwori Bobe is a sign that talks a lot about where we have a lot of father issue, daddy issues in Iwori Bobe, right? And actually, it's not just daddy issues. It's more like mommy and daddy issues, to be honest with you. Iwori Bobe is a sign where we gotta be careful not to live a promiscuous life. We can't be going around and sleeping with many people and trying to do all types of things. And no, you need to find stability. Odi Bobe, the humility of leadership and understanding and avoiding arrogance is understanding that that game that you play in the clubs and everything else and the cheating and everything else is very much temporary. And if you want to live by yourself and you want to die by yourself, then continue in your road. But that's the osobo that comes with it. Odi Bobe. It's making sure that you understand those traumas that you have that affect the relationships that you're going to have in the present and in the future. Iwori Bobe. Iwori Bobe is a sign that talks a lot about prosperity is far away, and it takes time to obtain it. But when you're going to obtain it, it's going to come, and it's going to come well. It's going to come beautiful. It's going to come strong, and it's going to be there. But you have to be able to maintain it. Humility of leadership, avoid the arrogance, go back to Odi Meji, kind of follow some of those rules. So in order for you to truly get to where you want to be. Odi Bobe. Odi Bobe is a sign that says the person's got to be obedient. Bottom line, obedient. That means that if the law says something, stop trying to skate around the law. If spiritually you're supposed to do something, stop trying to skate around it. Stop trying to be smarter than everybody else. And you have to get after it. Come on, Odi Bobe. Iwori Bobe is a sign where I began to tell you about those sedatives and the things that I worry about in this sign. Be careful about taking too many drugs, right? Even prescription drugs or illegal drugs, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant because a lot of things go to the stomach. And here in Iwori Bobe, we worry about stomach ulcers. We worry about what's the other stomach? The like ingestion, your intestines, right? And your ingestion and the breakdown, the digestive system. Right? We worry about those things. So you always got to keep that in the back of your mind. Iwori Bobe is a sign where the person a lot many times over is destined for a lot of great things. But a lot of great things they will accomplish more by themselves than they will with others. They will find their greatness, but a lot of times they need their personal space. They need their personal time. Right? And that's Iwori Bobe, and that's one of the characteristics of Iwori Bobe. Iwori Bobe is a sign where we have to ensure that we align ourselves with Chango and we keep Chango happy 24/7, 365. Iwori Bobe, we got to be careful that when it's time for you, right, to crown Ocha, crown your guardian Orisha, I want you to ensure that you analyze that carefully with your godfather Enifa, right, before you do anything to ensure that there is no doubt that your guardian Orisha is who he is or is who she is. Iwori Bobe is a sign where Ifa begins to warn us that we need to analyze some of the consecrations that we have and just double check some things before we do another step. Not that anybody did anything maliciously wrong, but we never know. But Iwori Bobe tells us to do it, so we got to do it. Iwori Bobe, Iwori Bobe. What else can I say about Iwori Bobe? I think I'm gonna stop there with Iwori Bobe. Let me go back into the chat. Let's see what we got here. In Iwori Bobe, how does one honor the reality of pain without becoming trapped in the identity of the wounded? How do they acknowledge what hurt them without letting it anchor them to the past? Hey, Buruboya. And the Buruboya to Mafarafun Laocha and Ifa. Mafarafun to all the Ochas. I love it. Rocio y Buruboya Bucheche. All right, Steve, back to your question. And then I'm going to jump to Vincent's question. So in Iwori Obe, right, there's a big transformation here where we need to talk about alignment, no different than something you talked about earlier. In Iwori Obe, you say, how does one honor the reality of pain without becoming trapped to it? Well, that's the problem. Iwori Bobe, and I would say that it's even evolution of modern times, right? Today, right? People feel like they're labeled already. If I tell you that you have post-traumatic stress disorder, then you automatically have post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Then they give you a pill. You take the pill. You feel that that pill is all you need to make things go away. You forget how to truly cope, and you forget that life is what life is. And if you're gonna allow yourself to be brought down, and you're gonna allow yourself to be an anchor, then we have bigger problems. I think something that's going on that's very terrible today. It's not that I don't have sympathy on mental health issues. Is that I think we coddle people with mental health issues. I think we don't push enough to understand that either you're gonna be, productive in life, you're gonna reach your destiny in life, you're gonna allow us to help you in life, or we're not gonna coddle you in life. If you don't think everybody has went through some form of trauma, some form of tragedy, or some form of death in the family, abuse, you name it, then you'd be wrong. With the hundreds of millions and probably a couple of billions of people that live in this world, right? We will be selfish or arrogant to think that we are the only ones suffering through something, the only one that went through something, that what you went through or anybody else, and not you particularly, I know you're talking about Odi Bobe, but that's unique. No one's ever felt that before. I think that'd be very illogical to say for those of you who are aligned with Odi Bobe. So I think it's important for us to start kind of, hey, we got to put up our britches, we got to get after it, we got to talk firm, and we got to talk stern. So in your case, trapped in the identity of the wounded, that's the problem. Don't be trapped, and don't allow yourself to be trapped with anybody who's really anchoring down. Here's the thing: if you're on a ship with somebody and the ship is going down, and the person refuses to get off the ship because it knows that it wants to stay on the ship and die with the ship and go down with the ship, do you have an obligation to go down in that ship with them? I don't know. I don't know. And every circumstances is different. I'm not saying that, everything is right in there, but that's my opinion. My opinion is, and it may sound a little heartless, and I'm not trying to do that, but I do want to align everybody with their destiny. I want to get everybody to be 100%. I want everybody to be smarter than me and elevate and be better than me. I want people to be preaching this word better than I ever could. But that's what he both. But to answer your question, then, how do they acknowledge the hurt with them without letting them anchor them to the past? I think I answered that one. So, Steve, thanks again for the good question. Vincent and Boy Padrino, is it safe to say that an Iwori Bobe deals with a person being able to adapt to trials may throw at you? Is it safe to say that an Iwori Bobe deals with a person being able to adapt to trials may throw at you? I think Iwori Bobe, if I'm reading your question right, I believe that in Iwori Bobe, absolutely. Iwori Bobe I talked about that great transformation Olokun brought to this world when the oceans and the seas rise, when the bees that came and defeated the most negative of all the Ileninis, right, what we call Abita and Lokumi, right, was able to conquer them through smarts, through intelligence, through stamina, right? We talk about two great forces, the Mbis and Olokun, that came into this world and transformed things. That's what Iwori Bobe was destined to do, transform. That's why an Iwori Bobe is mandatory. You need to receive Olokun. And if you got a Woody Bobe, you better hit me up on Messenger. You better figure out how to get a hold of me, find a Bawalao, do whatever you got to do. But you need to receive an Olokun of E5. You had to receive a Olokun of E5. It is what it is. You know what I mean? That's very important in a Woody Bobe. Um, but that's what a Woody Bobe is, Vincent. You know what I mean? Able to adapt to many things that are thrown at you in order to ensure that you are the aligned one. You are the one that no one's gonna rival. You are the one that no one's gonna shake up. I ain't say Woody Bob. All right, Greg, Buddha boy, Abucheche, brother, how you doing? All right, let's get after it. Let's get after it. If there's no more further questions, I think we're gonna man, maybe we get time for two more signs. What you guys think? Two more? If I stop talking? All right. Hey, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. All right, let's go into Iwuri Yekun. Man, I'm only got to the Mejis and two signs, and we're at 36 minutes. All right, Iwuri Yekun. I meant to say life may throw at you. My bad. No, you're good, Vincent. You're perfect, brother. I understood exactly what you were saying. I just want to make sure I didn't get you. But okay. Iwuri Yekun. Man, it's just that when it's good, it's good. You know what I mean? When you talk about old things and you feeling it, how do you get out of control? All right, Iwuri Obe. No, Iwuri Oyekun. Iwuri Oyekun. What can I say about this? Iwuri Oyekun. Um, when we talk about Iwuri Oyekun, this is a sign that stands as a warning that spiritual blindness can lead to stagnation. Yeah, buddy. Spiritual blindness leads to stagnation. I had to ask my elders this once. I was like, what in the hell does that mean? Right? What does that mean? So, spiritual blindness means that, again, the Iwuri series of things is very logical. Iwuri Yekun, very logical. Iwuri Yekun needs to align themselves more with intuition, right? Understand that they still have emotions, right? And they need to continuously grow and play and vector. I'll give you an example. In Iwori Oyekun, the person is spiritual. The person needs to see what triggers them. Maybe they work the boveda. That's not working. Okay, maybe now they want to go work the a spiritual altar of some sort. Maybe that's not working. Now they're gonna say, well, you know what? Let me keep the spiritual altar. Let me keep the boveda up, and let me work it. Still not working. Okay, let me go to the Teja de Egun. Let me go work there first. Then let me attend, my boveda, and let me see where that gets me. But you see, that's the difference. In Iwori Yekun, the Osorbo is that you do nothing. The stagnation falls over you. You don't feel like there's anything that's truly going on. Iwori Yekun, you got to be careful with that. Because here's the thing about Iwori Yekun. This is an Odu that teaches us that we have that we cling to negative cycles of things, ignoring the divine guidance. And this is something that can trap us into suffering. So we got it because we know that Iwori Yekun is like a claw, and it likes to claw and it likes to stick to these osobos of some sort, right? Um, you know, we have to be very cautious about those things, right? Because in Iwori Yekun, it demands that we got to cleanse our spirit. We got to honor our ancestors. We have to release what no longer serves us so that we can be reborn anew. Yes, reborn. So think about it like this. Iwuri Yeku. One of the biggest themes is death, life, and rebirth. Iwuri Oyekun is really good at ensuring that they can restart the time. They're really good at if you get fired or you get laid off, you did something foolish at a job, you're going to be fine. You're going to restart those things because we understand that maybe you didn't do the spiritual cleansings that you need. Maybe you didn't do the bosses of the sign that you needed. Maybe this is time for rebirth time and you needed to lose that job and Eshu made sure that you lost that job. But don't be irrational now. Don't just go ahead and sabotage yourself and then blame the spiritual. That's spiritual blindness that leads to stagnation, right? So we gotta avoid negative influences in this particular Odu, right? So this particular Odu in Iwori, um, there's a couple of things that it reminds me of. In Iwori, we talk about where when a person's footprint, right, lays itself down in the sand, in wet sand, right, it leaves an imprint. And no different than when the ocean comes over it, it washes it away. Iwuri Oyeku is a sign that reminds us it doesn't matter where we walk from. It's important to understand where we come from, but it's not necessarily important enough to define where we're going to go. It is merely a variable of time. We have to understand that we take those variables in order to apply our knowledge and our understanding of where we want to go, and we get after it. So, what am I saying? What do you like to do? Live in the past. So, here's the other piece. This is a situation, right, where we talk a lot about the person being gullible. You gotta be careful if you have this sign in any of your consecrations in Ifa. You gotta worry about being too gullible and then be made a fool of. You gotta be careful, right? And you gotta arm yourself because people are gonna do dumb things. People are going to do malicious things, and you gotta be prepared to absorb those things or be smart enough to at least catch it so those things don't happen to you. When we talk about the concepts of the eguns, just like everybody, because I believe everybody should get their teja de egun from the shoot. You get your hand of Ifa, it's warriors, hand of Ifa, and teja de egun all at once. It should be a package deal. That's how I do it because I think that's important. You got to honor your ancestors. So as you begin to kind of unravel that a little bit, right? We understand that those ancestors can also plague you. Those ancestors can make you sick. Those ancestors can make you impotent, where you don't even have the sensation to want to do, intimacy with your partners. When you talk about this particular sign, right, and in Iwori, this is a reason why we need to begin to arm ourselves more. Men need to receive Oro and Osign. Women, if they already went through menopause, they have to receive the Weedle of Osign. Right? You got to be careful about the internal workings, right? So that you can be stronger, which means that a lot of your illnesses and the problem that you're going to have is urinary tract infections, intestinal problems, type of disorders down and below, you know what I mean? In the private areas, stomach problems, internal bleeding. Be careful of all those things. You got to make sure that you don't lose control of your egg wounds. That's the reason why you got to receive Odom. Women, go get your spiritual misa. Figure out if you got to go get scratched. Go get scratched. Align yourself with the egg wounds. Work your palo if you got to work palo. Do whatever it is you got to do. Your egg wound and this Odum together says that you're going to have some dirty money. You guys heard me say it before. Not all money is good money. Dirty money means you obtain it in some type of fishy way, in a non-honorable way. And I'm not trying to call you out if this is your sign or anything like that, but you have the capacity to do it. You got to make sure your Egun stuff is squared away. All right. I'm going to leave you guys with that. Let's see what we got in the chat. Let's see what we got in the chat. Two more, Baba. Hey, I'm working at it. All right, Chair Vincent. All right, when someone feels spiritually disconnected despite knowing the rituals, how do we help them identify whether it's ancestral neglect, emotional entrapment, or refusal to release what must die? Woo, Steve. If you can answer that question, you'll take every psychiatrist. You'll take every psychiatrist and therapist. You'll put them out of a job. That's the $1 million question, Steve. The $1 million question. You know, when someone feels spiritually disconnected despite knowing the rituals, right? Everybody has an Odi. Every Odi is going to guide them where they need to take them. And some, when we talk about the spirituality of things, maybe some of them takes them to the Islam. Maybe some take them to Judaism. Maybe some take them to the Abrahamics. Maybe some of them take them to Tao. Maybe some of them take them to Ifa. You know what I mean? And they all have their versions of trying to align their folks, right? Some are a little bit more aggressive than others. But here's the magic statement of it all. And Stephen, I'm glad you brought this up because I think I did a podcast. I think it was a podcast, or did I do a live? I don't remember. I can't remember. Just recently too. I think it was in my podcast. If you guys need my podcast, matter of fact, I'm gonna send you the podcast right here so you guys have it and you guys check it out. Because now I remember it was the podcast, and I posted this because I thought it was important of unmasking, right? The truth, right? The truth. All right, let me see if I can. Let me see. Email link to episode. Uh, Boom. Here we go. All right, guys. I'm gonna send this right here to the chat. All right. That right there, that link I put in there talks a lot about what Steve is talking about. Listen, your spirituality should be able to connect you. If it doesn't connect you as a human, you need to be able to make that conscious decision. That, hey, you know what? This thing doesn't work for me. How come I get to go to this place, pray, do my thing, come out, and everything's either okay, not okay, don't feel different. Maybe I feel the same. Maybe I do feel different. Maybe I feel great. And you got to begin to evaluate those things. You got to be able to evaluate it. And you got to be able to make the conscious decision, right? Going back to Iwori, when we talk about Iwori Odu, right? Are you going to go down with the ship? Just because somebody else is going down with the ship doesn't necessarily mean you're obligated to go down with the ship with them. Right? And you got to be able to apply certain things. Listen, if you're not going to be 100% for yourself, you're not going to be 100% for me. If I'm going to keep you in my inner circle and I'm going to keep you tight and I'm trying to be around people that are going to help elevate me, people that are going to help promote me, right? I understand my job as a Babalao and I'm going to help everyone. And I don't necessarily need them to promote me. I don't necessarily need them to elevate me, but I do need to do my due diligence to help them. And how good am I going to be if I am allowing myself to be sunk by other people? I can't. I can't function. I will be not necessarily very helpful for the people that need my help, right? Specifically for my ile, where I want to give 110% to my ile, but I first got to be able to give 110% to me, right? So if I'm with people that are not necessarily 110% and I feel that they're weighing me down, I got to be able to shed that off. Problem is that sometimes we get too emotional and not necessarily logical and spiritual and aligned in order to do the things that we got to do. So, Steve, hopefully that answered the question. Hopefully that kind of gave us some clarity there. I don't know. Let's see. KD, you are waiting for what, KD? You want two more. All right, let's go two more. All right, I'm gonna do not two more, I'm gonna do one more. All right, because we're already at 49 minutes. All right. Iwori Odi. What can we say about Iwori Odi? Ooh, what is it I can't say about Iwori Odi? Okay. Iwori Odi. This is a sign that talks about the mastery of strategic thinking, right? The mastery. Someone that is able to analyze spiritually and physically and combine in order to produce a good roadmap and a good destination to avoid troubles, barriers, etc. Iwori Odi. Iwori Odi is a protection from enemies when done right, ensuring that justice always prevails. Iwori Odi. Iwori Odi is a sign that we learn that justice and truth, right, must be upheld, right, at all costs. We understand that this Odun warns us of betrayal and false friends. Yet it also reminds us that truth, you know, will always find a way to rise up above the deception, right? The ancestors in this particular sign, there's a saying that the Ogun said in this sign that was shared with me by my elders, right? That the one who tells no lies will need no witnesses. What type of credibility do you think a liar has? And that's the question, right? And that's what Iwori Obe tries to explain to us. Iwori Obe reminds me of a pataki about a man that was falsely accused, right, of stealing and was told to place a knife, a white dove, palm oil at his door, right, to expose the true thief. The next day, the thief returned the stolen items, right? And I get it. I didn't give you guys the full pataki for the sake of time. But I resonate with this because many times it's pretty easy to flush out a thief. Many times it's really easy to flush out the truth because what you're truly trying to explore when you're trying to look for the truth is whether someone is willing to blatantly lie. What is their characteristics? Are they a compulsive liar? Right? And you just got to watch it play itself out. Right? And you ask the simple question. And the Babalaos know what I mean here. When we ask in the mornings, is the sun going to come out or not? Maybe some of the Babalaos know what I'm talking about. Maybe some don't. But Iwori Bobe. Iwori Odi. Okay. Iwori Odi, I'm gonna try to tread lightly on this one because Iwori Odi is a sign of the of people who live very liberal, right? People that want to do and they want to behave as they see fit, not for the betterment of the community or the greater scope, but they're okay fighting for the small cause that doesn't necessarily have contributions to the big cause because of what they want to do and how they want to behave. Right? We call them libertarians, call them liberals, right? We call them, we call them for what they are, but we have to understand on where they want to go. And a lot of times, to their own detriment, they find themselves more concerned about their agenda than they do about the greater good. That is Iwori Odi. Iwori Odi is sometimes we have to be careful not to be so arrogant, right? And so unconforming that we lose our own homes, our families, our friends. The Iwori Odi is a sign where the person is obstructed. They're not even aware of what surrounds them at times. Iwori Odi is a sign that is a lot of times referred to as the running of the bulls, right? Where the matador has the red cape and he's waving it, right? And the bull is coming by and he's getting after it, right? And it just keeps fooling the bull. And what happens when that red cape is behind a metal anvil and he lifts the cape up and the bull hits the anvil? That's the type of expression that Iwori Odi has to be careful of. Iwori Odi is a beautiful sign. Don't get me wrong, I already told you, a lot of protection from the enemies, a lot of ensuring that justice meets its end. Iwori Odi is a beautiful sign, but has some strong osolbo that aligns with it. Remember, guys, there's always pros and cons. So the Iwori Odi, you gotta be careful, right, with the false delusions. Iwori Odi, you gotta understand you're spiritual, but you're also a medium. Some probably don't even know it yet, right? But you have to attend those eguns, and you got to begin to unravel yourself. You got to find yourself. My wife organizes these a lot, spiritual misas that are investigative, to see who is your spirit guide, right, and who are those eguns that walk with you. You have a potential that not too many people have. Not everybody has the ability spiritually to get mounted, to hear the eguns, to dream with the eguns, whatever that may be. Not everybody has it, but this sign has it. It's just dormant, and you got to get after it. Iwori Odi. Iwori Odi is a sign that talks a lot about where children do not govern parents. Children do not make adult decisions. Children, if you do it right, the person you decide to marry or bring into that house, if it's a split home because maybe divorce or whatnot, children do not dictate that. You do right, right? Children are going to do what? They're going to live in their emotions. Children are going to do what? If you're not careful, remember, you're the parent. You're going to make sure that they're always safe. You're going to make sure that they're always secure. You're going to make sure that they're always healthy. But you got to be careful about how much you want to bring them into the fold with this sign of a Iwori Odi. Iwori Odi. Iwori Odi is a sign where it always says that your enemies wear masks. And they're always going to work behind your back. Right? They're not going to confront you. Iwori Odi, a sign where it says false illusions comes down from the clouds. But you have to be more realistic because you think you see the world for what it is, but you merely don't understand that it's an illusion. You got to push that out and you got to look for what it is. Respect the ocean. Respect the ocean in Iwori Odi. But more particularly, this is a sign where you begin to feel the temperament between the ocean and that personality and that energy that you bring with Iwori Odi begin to clash. Accidents happen in the ocean because of that, of those two powers that want to come together. Little boy. Okay, what else we got here? What else we got here? Ooh, I almost pulled the camera out. All right. All right, guys. I think we are at time. We stopped at Iwori Odi. At this rate, I think we're gonna be at one. What did we do? We did a couple here. So we did four now. Then yeah, we're gonna be on track for part 2 and 3 for sure. But okay. All right, guys. What do you have for me? Last comments, concerns. What do you got? Give me what you got. Questions? Let's see. Thank you, Baba. Yeah, I receive and will reflect fully. I show you there, Bobo. How does Iwori Odi teach us to recognize when personal will is making itself as spiritual alignment? Now, think spiritual alignment, right, is you understanding your ego-fa, your awo-faka, right? Awo-faka for guys, ego-fa for women, right? This is a reason why that on my website, if you go to the description, go to my website, I have to do it. I do breakdowns for people. Nobody else does breakdowns for anybody. Talking about almost 10 pages of just stuff that you look at and you analyze in order to better understand yourself. Why? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you are Westernly raised. You were raised by a mother and a father that probably were not even in the faith. And if they were in the faith, how well were they at guiding you and putting you in the right, bin for your Odun and your destiny, etc. So that's one, right? And when we also begin to recognize the will, like when you say personal will versus spiritual alignment, then if personal will is how you were raised in Western science, Western civilization, your difference in understanding between ethics, morals, and society, right? And it's been skewed in your mind a certain way, and now you know spiritual alignment because now you received your hand of Ifa, you know where you're going, you know where your Odi is taking you, and you know where everything is pushing forward through. And that spiritual alignment, whether you have to do it both or whatnot, right? Now you know what right and wrong look like. You know where the two clashes come together. Those are strong conversations that you have with your godfather, strong conversations you have with your godmother, strong conversations, and even why we at times we have to receive other consecrations to reinforce us and protect us further. Reason why people receive a local orisha oku, oro, sign, even a local of ifa. It doesn't necessarily matter, but it's to complement that spiritual protection, that spiritual alignment, so that we can begin to crash and push through those barriers of the physical world. The stuff that we were taught at a certain point in time that maybe doesn't necessarily apply. Right? So we find ourselves in this conflict, Steve. Right? We find ourselves in this conflict and in this friction point, reevaluating our ethics, our morals, and our legal rights to community. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps. You know, hey, little boy, great questions. Hey, hopefully each and every one of you, again, like, subscribe, share. We're at an hour. Iburu boy, Ibuche Che Cyberland, your favorite Babalao coming at you. And I will see you again for Inspirational Sunday next week. Little boy.